in the rugged hills of a war-torn valley, where the sun dipped low like a weary soldier, Captain Elias Thorne stood at the edge of his command post. His name, whispered among his troops like a talisman, evoked the strength of ancient oaks, unyielding yet graceful. Elias was a man forged in the fires of conflict, his piercing blue eyes holding the weight of battles past. At 35, he carried the scars of a decade in the infantry, but his heart remained tethered to a distant home, where his wife Serafina awaited with their young daughter Leora. Serafina, with her name meaning fiery one, was the embodiment of quiet resilience. Her raven hair cascaded like midnight rivers, and her laughter had once filled their modest cottage with warmth. Leora, their 7-year-old miracle, bore a name that meant light in ancient tongues, a beacon in Elias's darkest nights. She had her mother's emerald eyes and her father's unquenchable curiosity, often drawing pictures of stars and dreaming of peace under the same sky that now thundered with artillery. The mission was clear. Intelligence had pinpointed an enemy outpost nestled in the craggy peaks, a hive of snipers and improvised explosives that had claimed too many lives. Elias's unit, a ragtag band of survivors from the 7th Regiment, prepared under the cover of dusk. The rocket launcher, a sleek behemoth of steel and circuitry, gleamed ominously in the fading light. It was no ordinary weapon. It carried the hopes of ending the siege that had gripped the valley for months. As Elias reviewed the coordinates, his mind wandered to a letter from Serafina, tucked safely in his breast pocket. "Come home to us, my love," she had written. "Leora asks for you every night." Drawing rockets that fly to the stars instead of the ground. The words pierced him deeper than any shrapnel. He had joined the fight for a better world, but each deployment chipped away at his soul. Tonight, firing that rocket meant one step closer to victory, or one more ghost to haunt his dreams. The air grew thick with tension as the team assembled. Private Jameson, a wide-eyed recruit with freckles like scattered stars, fidgeted with his gear. "Captain, you think this'll end it?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Elias placed a steady hand on the young man's shoulder. "We fight not just for land, but for the light in our children's eyes. Remember that." As the stars emerged, Elias gave the order. The launcher hummed to life, its targeting system locking onto the enemy position 5 kilometers away. His finger hovered over the trigger, the weight of lives, friendly and foe, pressing down like an invisible storm. The valley echoed with the low rumble of distant thunder, but it was no storm from the heavens. Elias's heart pounded in rhythm with the launcher's countdown. "Target acquired," murmured Lieutenant Arya Voss, his second in command. Arya, with a name evoking melodic grace, was a force of nature. Her sharp intellect and unerring aim had saved the unit countless times. Her golden hair was tied back in a practical braid, but her spirit burned fierce, a reminder that beauty and bravery often danced hand in hand. "Fire!" Elias commanded, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. The rocket erupted from the tube in a blaze of fire and smoke, streaking across the night sky like a vengeful comet. It arced gracefully, its trajectory a perfect parabola of destruction, guided by satellites and sheer determination. For a moment, time suspended. Elias imagined it not as a weapon, but as a messenger carrying the pain of separated families, the cries of the oppressed. Back home, Serafina paced the wooden floors of their cottage, Leora asleep in her arms. The child had stirred earlier, whispering, "Papa's sending stars tonight." Serafina smiled through tears, clutching a faded photograph of Elias in uniform. She had met him during a brief leave, their love igniting like a spark in dry tinder. Now, with the war raging on, she whispered prayers to the winds, begging for his safe return. Miles away, the rocket found its mark. The enemy position exploded in a fireball that lit the horizon, debris raining down like fallen stars. Cheers erupted from Elias's team, but he felt no joy, only a hollow ache. Intelligence reports trickled in. The outpost was decimated, but whispers of survivors reached them. Among the ruins, a young enemy soldier named Khalil clutched a locket with his sister's photo, his last thoughts drifting to a home much like Elias's. As the dust settled, Elias's radio crackled. "Captain, incoming retaliation." They're scrambling. The valley came alive with counterfire, mortars whistling overhead, forcing the unit to scatter. Elias dove for cover, his mind flashing to Leora's drawings. In the chaos, Arya was hit, a shard of metal grazing her arm. "I'm fine," she gritted, but her eyes betrayed the pain. Elias rallied his men. leading a defensive push. Bullets zipped like angry hornets, and in the fray he confronted the human cost. An enemy fighter, barely out of his teens, surrendered at his feet. "Please," the boy begged in broken English. "I have family." Elias's hand trembled on his rifle. Mercy or duty? In that split second he chose life, binding the prisoner's hands. The rocket had fired toward the enemy, but war's true target was the soul. Dawn broke over the valley like a hesitant promise, painting the scorched earth in hues of gold and crimson. Elias's unit held their ground through the night, the rocket's strike tipping the scales in their favor. Reinforcements arrived, securing the area, but victory tasted bittersweet. Arya's wound was bandaged, her smile faint but genuine. "We did it, Captain," she said, her voice laced with exhaustion. Elias nodded, but his thoughts were elsewhere. The prisoner's words echoed family. He pulled out Seraphina's letter, reading it again under the rising sun. "Our love is the true weapon," she had written, "stronger than any rocket." Tears welled in his eyes, tears for the lives lost, for the innocents shattered on both sides. Weeks later, Elias returned home on leave, the war's end in sight. Seraphina met him at the door, her embrace a sanctuary. Leora rushed into his arms, her small hands clutching a new drawing. A rocket soaring not toward destruction, but to the moon with stars trailing behind. "Papa, did you send it to the enemies?" she asked innocently. He knelt, his voice soft. "I sent it to bring peace, my light." That night, as they sat by the fire, Elias shared fragments of the story, not the gore, but the humanity. He spoke of Arya's bravery, of the prisoner's plea, weaving a tapestry of empathy amid the ruins. The rocket had fired toward the enemy position, but it ignited something deeper, a realization that borders were illusions, and hearts beat the same rhythm everywhere. Elias vowed to fight for a world where rockets launched dreams, not death. Seraphina held his hand, her fiery spirit kindling hope. Leora, asleep on his lap, dreamed of unity under the stars. In the quiet aftermath, Elias found power not in weapons, but in love's enduring flame, a force that could heal even the deepest wounds. The valley, once a battlefield, began to bloom anew, a testament to resilience. And in that bloom, Elias saw the true victory, not conquest but connection.